Hello, I'm Toycat, and I got a comment suggesting that I was one of the only people who is really interested in transport in London who actually has the ability to drive. And so here is me here's me poorly driving. Here is me with my arms outstretched. Oddly outstretched, actually, now I'm seeing it on camera. Here is me driving as a result. And so I wanted to just give you a little drive and talk to talk about transport in London, because if you have ever lived on the suburban belt of London or anywhere near London, even maybe the other side of the country, you've heard multiple people in your life talk about how silly it is to drive in London. When I talk about renting a car in London, or maybe even owning a car in London, everyone says, like, you don't need a car in London, right? That is one of the truest facts in the UK, one of the most commonly shared bits of knowledge. And it is, broadly speaking, true. I think it's one of those, it's not a harmful piece of information to have by itself, but it isn't actually sharing the whole truth. And also, I think the way that people tend to see modes of transport as something that can define a person are kind of dangerous. So let's go on a drive and let's talk about it. I'm somewhere in West London. I've just driven past the History Museum, and I'm in like the most driving friendly bit of London right now, I would say, but it's still not particularly driving friendly. I still am going at an average speed of, I'm doing a 12-mile journey that's taking an hour and 12 minutes. So you could work out the average speed is somewhere just under 10 miles per hour, if I'm not mistaken. Driving in London is not a fun time, I think, is the easiest way to explain this. And so as a result, if you can avoid driving in London, you should. And avoiding driving in London is really easy. It has the best public transport system in the country. Maybe on the continent, you could easily argue, depending on which metric you'd like to use. Public transport in London is so good, and biking in London is so good because because of how cars are, that actually this is the best city not to drive in. And that doesn't mean that it's the worst city to drive in, or rather, that doesn't mean that no one should ever drive forever. And I'd like to make a radical suggestion here, one that I think many people who consider themselves people who cycle a lot or catch public transport should also agree with, which is the idea that we are not cyclists or bus takers or people who love public transport so much will take it no matter what. I have considered myself at various times someone who will do, I've caught buses when there are shorter drivers. I've ridden a bike for journeys that should have been a bus journey, etc., etc. I've flown for journeys that could be done via a long drive if I wanted to. But the truth is that I don't think we should see ourselves as our mode of transport, because that is unhelpfully considering that we prefer how we travel to why we travel. The reason that we travel is to get somewhere, and ultimately in London, most of the time, where you want to get to will be reachable via public transport. If you're lucky, if your destination, be that your friend or a bakery or your workplace, happens to be connected to a tube or train or Elizabeth line, then it's really simple. You catch the tube or the train to the Elizabeth. You do all the magic and you get to your destination. If you're lucky that you're within like 5 miles, let's say 3 miles off your destination, and it's not that well connected by one of those things somehow, you could easily bike it. Or if you just want to be active, you could bike it. If it's like 5 or 7 miles, you just e-bike it. Or if it involves a lot of hills, or you're not that active, e-biking is the best. But there are still lots of journeys in London which have to be done by car. I have friends who live way out in the southwest bits of London that don't even really, they're not really London. It's like Surrey down there, but like, within the greater London boroughs area. So like, to get there, it is like, yeah, there is a very weird, windy train that you have to get after catching the tube that costs more than a normal tube and messes up the whole thing. And also, that does not run on some Sundays, or does not run when there is, I'm not sure if there's a strike or maintenance work this weekend, but there are places and there are times for all places. I remember the last tube strike, I wasn't living in London, but I had to get across London to get from my train station to the airport. It was such a nightmare. I tried getting on a bus, but the bus would arrive at the bus stop 100% full, and the bus driver would just shrug and go away, and then the next bus would come, and I waited at the bus stop for like 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, I can walk it. It was an hour and 20-minute walk. But for journeys that are longer than that, I'm a big believer that you can walk basically anywhere. It's a 30 zone now. Oh yeah, look how fast I'm going. 30 miles per hour, zooming around London. But yeah, the basic point I'd like to make is that actually, if you consider yourself a driver above all else, that is a flaw in actually you're going to start choosing your destinations based on what's an easy drive or what has parking when I get there. If you consider yourself a public transport user above all else, there are all sorts of things you're going to miss out on because, oh, there's no tube stop near that, or the trains aren't running today. A lot of my friends of mine who live outside of London live on a train line that right now is going through some very serious every single weekend, with like very few exceptions, there is such major maintenance work that what should be a 40-minute train takes them like 2.5 hours or something like that. And it's like, okay, so now they, because I think understandably, like if you're going to come out into London and drink, like catching the train is important. For the ones who can't drive, it's like, yeah, I guess I can't go there without losing an hour and a half extra of my time. I think no one should consider themselves to be a mode of transport user first. You should just have destinations that you've got to get to. And in London, there are weirdly some destinations that, yes, it makes sense of. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. Like, favorite, subscribe.